Tesla. Of course, the stock rallying despite everything after having an incredible year last year, up 3.4% today. What are the expectations for Tesla this year? What does it have to do in terms of execution, sales, et cetera, to keep investors happy, in your view?
I think there's a couple of things that they need to do specifically. One, they need to keep gross margins high. I think as we think about the valuation for Tesla, it's really about dreaming the dream over the next decade, and their ability to continue to generate cash and make progress as they scale up manufacturing is important. The second thing is really execute on the full self-driving. One of the things that I think nobody really knows how to get their heads wrapped around just fully yet is about autonomous vehicles and what that's going to mean for production and margins and business model. Really, this business could go from being a durable goods market into a software or a subscription type market very quickly if you've got a bunch of self-driving vehicles out there. And I think that is part of the valuation story on Tesla right now is that we're looking at the impact of autonomous vehicles on the overall transportation market.
Interesting. That was always the long-term play for Tesla, and now it's got its production issues over. It seems as though that can be refocused on. What about, though, competition? As we see some of the luxury car makers really starting to bring their EVs to bear, and notably a lot of these other electric vehicle companies that are raising funds, coming out into market, helping sort of clutter the roads to a certain extent.
We've got to see the cars actually hit the road. So you've got the ID.4 coming out shortly from VW. We'll see how that sells. You've got a number of other vehicles coming out in 2022. And, certainly Tesla went through a pretty steep learning curve on manufacturing EVs. And we'll see how painful that is for some of these other OEMs. Certainly some of the traditional OEMs have more experience with certain things, but moving into electric powertrains and some of the other nuances of EVs is going to be a challenge. And as for the startups, there's an awful lot of work to do in terms of ramping up fully. There's a lot of experience and a lot of very capable people out there. We've got to see the cars get produced. You've got to see customers get excited about those vehicles and be comfortable putting their money on the table for what they're going to buy.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess one of the advantages, the first mover advantages we've seen Tesla have is that they did actually try to do a lot of this on their own, which appears to be giving them a leg up over some of their U.S. competitors as well as some of their European competitors. I am curious about some of their Chinese competitors. We did get some delivery data out of those companies from NIO, XPeng, Li Auto, and a few others. Those numbers were doing well did pretty well on their own. Is there some concern here that maybe out of Asia, specifically out of China, there could be a little bit more competition here for Tesla?
Certainly, as you move into EV designs, you move into a different supply chain, you move into a different design, expertise, and you move into a different manufacturing process. And certainly, I think people are watching that pretty closely right now. What's happening in China in terms of the transformation of that transportation market and the electrification of it. There's a lot of wood to chop for those companies domestically. But as this matures, we're certainly looking at the potential for those companies to begin exporting into other markets, and that's something that we're going to watch very closely over the next 5 years. But given what we're seeing from traditional OEMs and localized manufacturing for these big cars, it's important to have local manufacturing and local jobs for sales, and that I don't think it's necessarily going to change as we move into EVs. And so there's a risk that we need to attend to, but it's not something that we're overly concerned about short term.
So there's also, Tesla has its vision for the future, but there's other visions for technology. I'm looking at, I think you have an outperform on fuel cell as a popular fuel cell company, some others in that space, thinking about hydrogen, other technologies that could provide more of a clean or a green future, whether it's vehicles or elsewhere. Is it possible that there could just be something that technologically disrupts Tesla, not necessarily a direct competitor, but a sort of different vision or different paradigm of how to distribute energy?
So we're of the view that we're moving towards diversified fuel for the transportation market. Electric vehicles are going to be part of that solution. Hydrogen will be part of that solution, and natural gas is already part of that fuel mix. There's going to be regional differences in terms of availability of fuel and the different technologies that are available. So we certainly see hydrogen being part of the fuel mix, particularly as you move into areas or parts of the supply chain where you have a fairly large payload and weight becomes an issue. So that's something that we're watching as we go forward. But certainly for passenger vehicles and moving into autonomy, You've got EVs and eventually some hybrids and hydrogen-based vehicles, but really on the light-duty side, we're really focused on EVs as the disruptive force that's going to dominate the market over the next decade.